Okay, so building off where we left last time, let me run this, get this up and running at least, and kind of see what the problem is. Hopefully, we can kind of think about why there's a problem, and then we're going to do a solution for this. The solution isn't, it gets a little bit into some higher level stuff, a little bit. It's not super challenging, but it is kind of like an extra step in just conceptual difficulty. So let's take a look here. And our problem was that if we click here, okay, first time it works fine. Second time, okay. Third time, fourth time, fifth time, sixth time, no. And okay, so hopefully what you can see out of that is that every time that we click, we are, well, I mean, if we look at our code, like we always want to make a connection between what's happening and what our code is doing. So if we look through our code, like this part's all nonsense, it's just printing out, we don't care about that. It's all in here, right? We're making a new text object called coordinates. It's getting placed with whatever we build, whatever the string is, and it's getting put in this location. So every time that we click, we're creating a new coordinates object, and we're putting it in the same exact place. So these things are just stacking up on top of each other. What we might want to have happen here is like, and maybe what we're expecting to have happen here is that every time we click, a new thing shows up there, and the old one goes away. So let's see. Oh, there's, yeah. I can think of a fancier solution for this, or I'm not sure. No, I think we'll just have to go with the fancier, higher level solution for this. So the problem is we're creating a new text object, and this text object, this thing coordinates, only exists inside of this method. So basically, you can think about like we're creating this text thing. Whenever we click, we're accessing this method here. It's going through and it's creating this text, this coordinate object, or this text object called coordinates, and it's placing it on the screen. And then that kind of variable gets deleted from the memory. It still shows up on the screen, it's still there, but we don't have access to that variable again because it only existed for just a brief second when this method was called. As soon as the method is done running, that variable kind of gets deleted from the memory of the computer. Okay, it's just kind of part of the way it runs, which is kind of nice because maybe I could use something with the same variable name here. Like if I want to make a string called coordinates later, that's not going to be a problem because these two, in a way, this variable and this variable, even though they are the same name, they kind of exist in different universes. They exist in different kind of realities, right? And this one exists in this method's reality, the start method, and this variable exists in this mouse down method. So they're in the code, but they're in separate kind of little boxes. Yeah, and so what we need to do is we need to define a variable called coordinates that's going to exist. Like if we want to get this to work, we need to define this variable across the entire program. So instead of defining it within these kind of methods, either the main method, the start method, oh, I don't want to do that, I don't know what happened there, or any of these other methods, we want to define it for the entire program. If we want to find a variable for the entire program, we put it right here. We're going to put it right below the class, and it's going to be on the same line as any of these, like same indentation, same like level of authority as any of these other methods. So I'm going to make a variable called text coordinates here. And it's going to be a little bit longer of a video. I hope this is making sense. Always welcome to stop me and talk to me. So let's see here. And I mean like, in person, obviously. So let's go here. All right, so we're defining a variable up here called coordinates. I'm going to make this just to be a blank thing. I'm going to make it like a new blank object. It's going to be at the same location. So let's do this. This. And I'm just going to make this blank. Oh, delete all that stuff. It's just going to be quotation. So when we run the code at the very beginning, this text thing is going to show up on the screen. It's just going to be invisible because there's no like writing for it. It's just like an empty string. Okay, and that's going to appear on the screen right away. Now what we want to do in here, now we're not creating, we've already created the text object and it's going to stay there, but now we have anything that we define up here, we have access to across the program. So when I go into mouse down now, instead of defining a new text thing, I'm just going to say coordinates. So I'm going to access this variable, this object, and I'm going to set the text to be output. Okay, so I'm going to run this and let's just see how it works, if it works. And again, this is a little bit higher level. We introduced some new stuff here, so I'll come back and explain what we introduced new. Of course, I made a mistake, didn't close that one. Let's see, it should load up here. Ouch. Let's try and run this again. I have some issues with, like, CodeingRunners is having some issues today. Oh, maybe this is a mistake for me then. What's going on here? Text coordinates. Should be fine here. Oh, let's see here. Some sort of. I'm gonna just refresh this, and this is might be. I'd like to pause this just to make the video not so long, but you can skip forward to this. But I kind of like to leave the errors in here or leave the, problems, because you might face these same problems. There's nothing kind of unique. So I'm not going to pause, but you can feel free to skip ahead. Just hit that mouse button. Hopefully I have the answer here when you come back. You catch up. All right, so mouse down. This code all looks good. Text coordinates, this seems like that's fine. I mean, I could make this empty and then define it within the start thing, but I don't think I need to. It's still giving me an error. I wonder if I need to Java draw. Let me just try this. It should be fine to declare it up here, unless I need to make it like public. I don't think so though. I'm just going to move this into here. That should have been fine to do that up there. But so basically what I'm doing is I'm just splitting up the. In here I'm declaring a variable, and then down here I'm using that variable. And then it wants to be. Actually, I'm going to do. I can just do this and start. Deal with static stuff. All right, so this should work. All right, so we're declaring it up here. We're creating it down here. Let's see if Java's got a problem with it this time. Nope, looks like it's not having a problem with it. So, weird. All right, so now if we click, it's working. Okay, so, all right, so let's talk a little bit about a refresh to come back to why this is working. Before, the problem was that we kept creating a new object on top of the objects that were already there, and we just kept piling them up. So we said the solution to that is I want to make one variable, and then instead of like making a new version every time, I want to start with that one set of text. I want to update it every time and change like what's in there, what's in the text. So let's go into, so yeah, and so we did that down in, so what we did is we defined a variable that's going to exist across the entire program, across all of our code in here. Coordinates is going to be accessible in any method because we defined it up here. And again, you can think of it kind of on the same line as these other methods. It's kind of at the same power level. It's at the same authority level. It's accessible across the entire program. And mainly, it's just because we put it outside of the method, outside of any particular method. If we write it within a method, it would only exist within that method. So that's a tricky one to kind of get started with. So we defined it up here. We created the object outside. We defined this kind of variable outside of the methods. We set it up. We said here's going to be the starting value in here, and then later on in here we're actually updating it. And so that's how we got this to update. So coordinates, accessing the variable coordinates, using this .text function to access the text and to update it with this. Okay, so that's a complicated one, but I think it is a really important. It is for sure a very important idea in coding. It talks about scope and making like global variables. This is a variable that's global. This is a global variable because it's accessed across the entire thing. All right, I'm going to stop it there. There's a lot of stuff in there, and I know the video is already long enough. I hope you skipped through some of it.